evening, everybody. Welcome to Law&Crime's Daily Debrief. The state of Connecticut and the defense team for dead murder defendant Fotis Dulos have filed new arguments in a fight about a gag order.
In taking his own life, wealthy suspect Fotis Dulos may have also killed off the hopes of future suspects to defend themselves in the court of public opinion. Dulos, suspected of killing his wife Jennifer after a rancorous divorce, was limited in what he could say about the case after the state sought a gag order against him.
I just want to say that I love my children. I miss them. I think about them all the time. That's all.
Dulos, his family, and his attorneys have appealed the gag order. The state wants the appeal dismissed because Dulos is now dead. Citing case law, the state says when events have occurred that preclude an appellate court from granting any practical relief, a case has become moot. An appeal that has become moot must be dismissed. Dulos' attorneys say they and Dulos' family remain gagged and should fight for their rights to speak. The state says the gag order will be lifted anyway when the trial judge tosses the case. Still, Dulos' attorneys say the appeal should be kept alive because other defendants could face similar harm.
The only thing I have to say again, for one more time, is that my only concern are my children. I care deeply about them.
The defense writes, unless a criminal defendant can defend himself immediately and publicly, the acquitted defendant may emerge victorious from trial, but will find his life destroyed. The gag order pinions all criminal defendants in the stocks of public opinion by preventing their attorneys from defending them against public vitriol. When prosecutors filed charges, the Connecticut State Police were careful not to offend the gag order after it was issued.
We will not be answering any questions today due to the gag order.
But New Canaan police tweeted justice right when Fotis Dulos and his alleged conspirators were arrested, raising questions about whether justice comes after an arrest or after a trial. And this in spite of the gag order.
Let's discuss this case with our panel right off the top tonight. Attorneys Jody Morales and Adam Conta are here with me in studio in New York. So, Adam, I've complained about the tweet in the past here because I don't think it was appropriate to say justice before a trial. An arrest, in my opinion, is not justice. But here's the bottom line. There's a gag order in place. The police tweet out justice. They have a press conference which keeps within the gag order, the state police, that is. But the bottom line is police are saying things, and the only thing the defendant can say is basically, I love my children. And he's getting hit with all of this in the court of public opinion. People are making their mind up about him. The conversation in Connecticut is, oh, this guy's guilty, this guy's guilty. He kills himself. Can the court actually decide the issue on the gag order to help some future defendant?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a very relatable example, which is the most famous example of this situation, is Roe v. Wade. The whole reason Roe v. Wade was decided was because the Supreme Court decided, even though the pregnancy is done, this isn't a moot issue because the gestation of a pregnancy is just too brief for a case to play out like this. So I hope that Connecticut does see this through because this is something that could come up again, and let's hash it out now. I mean, what we're describing is essentially un-American, that you can't use your First Amendment rights to defend yourself, if not against the court legally, the court of public opinion.
Yeah, this is exactly what the defense is saying. I would like to have a ruling on this because it's an issue that I study. We're here talking about it. But look, I mean, if you're accused, Jody, and then you get muzzled by a gag order, where do you go? I mean, I know you have to argue your case in court, but do you get a fair jury?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the jury's hearing things from one perspective only, and that's not fair. I mean, whether or not they're going to take this all into account in reaching a verdict is another thing, but I think that there should be an open conversation and an ability to discuss from the defendant's perspective what he or she is feeling.
So, Jody, the state's version of this is, okay, Fotis Dulos is dead. He killed himself. End of story. If we're going to decide this issue in a high court in Connecticut, wait for the next defendant to get charged in a high-profile case with a lot of attention. Wait for that gag order and then let that defendant sue and then hope for redress in some future case. That's the state side of this.
I mean, I don't think that's right. I think the time is now. The issue is here. It's before us. Why not handle this right now? It's only going to prolong the determination if this waits for another situation. We may not even get there. They may not get there. But this is a really important issue that needs to be addressed.
I would love to see a ruling on this, Adam, but part of me thinks that maybe the high court will just say, okay, we can't hear this appeal right now. We'll wait for that future defendant to come up who actually could be cured by a high court ruling.
Sure. I mean, look, I think you got to look at who's about to get elected, who needs to be reappointed, because could be a hot button issue, and it's very easy to punt if they want to.
They can, and that may be where it goes. And we're waiting for the trial judge to actually dismiss the case against Fotis Dulos now that he is dead at the trial level, even though the defense wants to keep it alive. That coming up in a couple of weeks. A juror in the Harvey Weinstein trial is speaking publicly about those deliberations. Juror number 2 spoke to the TV show Inside Edition and said deliberations were tense at times. The juror said actress Annabella Sciorra's testimony was convincing to a lot of the jurors. Interestingly, though, the jury did not convict as to the counts related to Sciorra. The juror said she hopes the women who testified found closure through the 2 guilty verdicts. One of Weinstein's accusers joined us today on the Law and Crime Network with these harsh words for the defense, and specifically defense attorney Donna Rotuno.
I do have a sense of peace after this verdict. And I know that we still have so much more work to do, because the trial that's going to be happening in Los Angeles is quite huge as well. But I am happy that he is convicted. He's a convicted serial rapist, and hopefully he will be behind bars soon. I think I've been very vocal about my thoughts on his defense team, specifically Donna Rotuno, as have many other of people, and including a lot of the other survivors of Harvey Weinstein. But I think that some of the things that she has presented have been incredibly victim blaming and shaming. I am one of his victims. So it is upsetting and it's enraging to hear that personally. But I understand that she is trying to frame her defense. In most sex crime prosecutions, there are no quote unquote perfect victims. You know, there's a lot of counterintuitive elements that you will look at in a case, and she has had a lot of opportunity to use those in her defense and cross-examine the victims. And she certainly did that to the degree that I personally think was outrageous.
A special look today on the Law and Crime Network at the upcoming murder trial of Robert Durst. Durst is accused of killing his friend Susan Berman because she knew he had previously killed his wife, Kathy Durst. That's the state's theory of the case. Durst's defense attorney gave us an inside look into what that side of the case will be.
My style is pretty aggressive. I'm very big on preparation, cross-examination, and I try to anticipate as much as I can what we're going to see from the other side. In this case, we have a very determined, experienced, and hardworking prosecutor who I would venture to say knows the case as well as anybody could. Dick and Chip and I, and the other lawyer in the case is Don Ray, who's the go-to guy in Los Angeles. We have our work cut out for us. Without giving away secrets of what's planned, I think it will be an issue in the case. He is driven, this prosecutor. As I said earlier, he knows it inside and out. He not only went and interviewed Mr. Durst, he's interviewed most of the witnesses in the case and led the interrogation of those witnesses. So I think at some point in time, it will arise in the courtroom, but I'll let your viewers see the results of that once they happen.
Durst was acquitted of murdering his Texas neighbor Morris Black, claiming on the witness stand he shot in self-defense. Law and Crime spoke today with a private investigator and with the presiding judge. The judge said she believes it was Durst who left a surprise on her doorstep when he was paroled in 2006 for a dismemberment conviction in that case.
But when I got out of my car and I looked at it, I realized it was not a dead rat. It was a severed cat. And it was, the cat had been severed behind the shoulder blades so that it was the front legs and it was the head. I was horrified. I was terrified. It dawned on me that it could have been Robert Durst because it's a severed head.
It's not a novice doing that. This is somebody who has done this before. He has experience. And that's what's so scary about this whole episode. And also when Robert Durst was in court talking about chopping up the body, He said he was literally swimming in blood. And then he went back to his very expensive hotel and ordered a Caesar salad and ate that after doing this. To me, Robert Durst is a serial killer. And I think we're going to find out that Robert Durst is probably one of the most vicious and ruthless serial killers we've ever seen in the United States.
Durst's first wife, Kathy, went missing in 1982. Her disappearance is going to be coming into the California case that's coming up. One of Kathy Durst's friends is speaking out in hopes of one day finding the body of her missing friend.
I do not think it was planned. I think they would get into tussles sometimes. And I think it was just, she was very aggravated. And I think she came on to him. For all I know, she could have hit him. But they went into it, and he probably picked up a fireplace poker or something. And maybe he didn't, I don't think he meant it. It wasn't planned, but he killed her. Where did you put her body? I'd also want to know if he cut her up or buried her whole. Because according to neighbors, there was a light on in his basement all night long. I want to know what he was doing down there when he supposedly had put her on a train to New York. She was afraid of him, but at the same time, it was a dichotomy where if she had a couple of drinks in her, she got stronger. Because I was basically saying, get the heck out. And she was afraid, but she thought she could handle him. Susan, despite everything, did not deserve to be murdered. Kathy certainly didn't deserve to be murdered. Even the crazy neighbor across the hall from Bob in Galveston, Morris Black, didn't deserve to be murdered.
Many opinions on this case, and the Law and Crime Network's coverage of the Robert Durst trial coming up begins on March 2nd. Cameras are allowed for only parts of the proceeding. We will bring you as much as we can here on Law and Crime. And still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, the trial of a Wisconsin man accused of shooting his son in the head and killing him after a night of drinking. The father says the shooting was an accident. That case is coming up right after this break. A Wisconsin man is on trial over charges he shot and killed his own son after a night of drinking. 44-year-old Kayle Fleischauer is being tried again for second-degree reckless homicide. His 19-year-old son Chase died from a gunshot wound to the head. Prosecutors say Chase had injuries from a beating, but the defense says those injuries were from wrestling. The defense is that Chase accidentally shot himself. Here's how prosecutors began the case about the defendant's daughter, mentioning that she had been bullied at school. There is, prosecutors say, a connection between the bullying and the shooting.
And this led to an angry exchange between them all about the defendant thinking that her brother Chase should be protecting her from people, and some are saying, hey, I can take care of myself. The defendant texted to his girlfriend that he and his kids were fighting. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, she heard ruckus upstairs. Ended up causing him a bruise above his left eye. Petechiae, those are burst blood vessels in his eyes, consistent with strangulation, as is a long scratch on the side of his neck. There are bruises on his face, on his cheeks, all over his lips, scratches on his fingers, and bruises and scratches on his left arm, and blood coming out of his ear as a consequence of a fractured skull that he suffered.
The victim's sister said she heard that overnight commotion after an evening of drinking. It all led to her brother being killed.
I could hear motion coming from upstairs, like motion, and then I heard one of them yell, "F you," and the other one yelled, "F you." And I could hear Chase say, "I would never hit my father." I yelled upstairs and said, "Chase, it's time for bed. Chase, come to bed."
Why did you tell Chase to come to bed?
Because it was late and I could hear him upstairs, so I yelled for him to come down to bed.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, did Chase come downstairs then after you told him to come to bed with you?
No.
What's the next thing that you remember?
That I'd heard something extremely loud from upstairs. Like a very loud noise come from upstairs, like just so loud that I knew something was wrong. Like it sounded like it could have been like a hardwood like a wooden chair hitting like a hardwood floor, like sharp and loud.
After you heard that noise, what did you do?
I immediately went upstairs.
How did you go upstairs?
Quickly, I just went straight upstairs.
Then the sister ran to find her brother dead. Here is her testimony and some of her call to 911.
Then it was just, there was Chase there, and he was lying on his back by himself. And he was bleeding really badly from his head.
I think that my brother was shot in the head. You think your brother shot himself in the head? Please, please. Okay, I've got help on the way. Are you there with him now? Please. First of all, are you there with him now? Yes, I am. Okay. And where's the gun? I told him. Summer, is he awake? No, he's not. Okay. Is he breathing? I don't know how to tell. Okay. You don't think he's breathing, though? No, I do. Okay, we're going to help him.
One of the responding EMTs described a chaotic scene in that home.
She was yelling and very hysterical towards him, making comments towards him, asking.
Not saying what she said.
Yeah, asking questions of him.
And it was loud.
It was, yes, it was loud. Mm-hmm.
How, if in any way, did you see that person react to Summer?
There was no reaction to Summer.
Now, when you went out to the ambulance, what were you intending to do?
We were planning to just wait for a few minutes to see if law enforcement needed us any longer, and then we were going to leave the scene. Our work was done.
One of the responding officers said the defendant was a strange suspect.
And I still had my camera on me, and I noticed there was some blood on the defendant. I started taking photographs. He started to become upset and loud. He was getting loud and exaggerated. He asked if I wanted to start something, I believe is what he said. He called me sunshine, and then he asked if I wanted some of his, he said cock, and he pulled down the front of his pants, exposing his penis multiple times. I told him to stop, and he continued to pull down his pants. He was yelling. He was showing odd behavior, and then he made an aggressive right turn towards me.
What's an aggressive right turn, officer?
Quick, without any warning. And then I believe he started to raise his arms when, at that point, Deputy Coleman and Deputy Proshak made a decision that for officer safety, he'd be detained in handcuffs.
The defense on cross wanted to know about how the defendant got blood on himself and went back to the theory that this was an accident.
I did not see any blood on the gun.
And did you know before you started taking the pictures of my client, Kayle Fleischauer, that he had been laying on the top of his deceased son saying goodbye?
I did not know that.
Did any deputies tell you that, well, the blood is on him because he was lying on top of his son saying goodbye?
Nobody told me that.
When you were there, the EMT people were already there, correct?
They were on scene before I was, yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
And the tattoo on his arm that you took the picture of says Chase and Sommer, does it not?
I can see Chase on there.
Okay, you won't say the other one, Sommer?
I can only see part of the word.
Another deputy was cross-examined about the defendant getting aggressive when authorities photographed him for evidence.
You asked Kayle Fleischauer if you could take, if Duran could take pictures of him, correct?
Correct.
And he said no.
Correct.
But you took the pictures anyway.
Yes, sir.
And when the pictures were taken is when he dropped his pajamas, correct?
Yes, sir.
When he did that, were you in front of him or in back of him?
In front of him.
Along with Duran? Or was Durand in back of him?
Durand was in front of him as well.
Anybody in back of him?
No, sir.
And after the pictures were taken, you testified that my client got aggressive. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that would be the first time that he got aggressive in this whole time you were there, right?
Correct.
Let's bring everybody back in to discuss this case now. Adam Conta, Jody Morales. Jody, you've got the burst blood vessels, you've got the scratches, you've got the blood from a fracture, you've obviously got a gunshot to the head here. Do prosecutors have enough to prove the crime they're trying to prove here?
I still don't think they have enough. I mean, based on what the sister's saying, that she heard some sort of tussling, she wasn't really certain. I don't know that there's enough here to show that Dad actually shot him. It just doesn't add up to me.
Adam, what do you make of this one?
Well, one jury already decided they did have enough to prove it.
Well, they were experimenting on their own back in the jury room.
That's right.
And that's why we have a retrial here. This sounds like the Tex McIver case that we covered.
And that could have been a compromise verdict too, which now won't be there. They had this sort of charge to fall back on, which now this is the top count. So I'm curious. I agree with Jody though. I think there's some real issues here. You've got an extremely intoxicated person, certainly guilty of indecent exposure, it sounds like, on multiple counts. But outside of that, there's no motive and there's no criminality but for the shooting.
So, Jody, you're thinking that this should be an acquittal then, based on too many reasonable doubts running through the evidence here?
Absolutely, and I think I agree with Adam. The biggest thing is no motive. Why would this man all of a sudden take it out on his son to that degree? It just doesn't add up.
So is it possible here that we're going to get this defendant back up on the stand again?
And
it's going to turn into his version of the story, and a question as to whether or not the jury believes it.
Absolutely. I think so. I think he has to get back on the stand. This is really serious at this point. His life is on the line. There's nothing else for him to do but to fight for it. And again, the evidence doesn't add up to, him being guilty. So it makes a whole bunch of sense for him to talk.
Really quickly, Adam, can he survive cross-examination from the state?
I don't think he should testify. What does he have to gain? I was too drunk, I don't remember. He can say that, his lawyer can say that with him. Let them focus on the doubt, leave him off the stand so he's not exposed to cross-examination.
No ability to even form intent possible here. Well, let's wrap things up for the debrief. We'll be back here with our recap of the day in court tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern.